The president gave a speech on immigration yesterday in which he called on Republicans to rejoin the effort to pass comprehensive immigration reform. Some people criticized him saying he spent too much time scolding the Republicans and too little time looking for common ground. What did you think of the speech?
I thought his speech was very inspiring. He's plainly saying we're trying to make change happen. And he was very upfront. He said we need Republican votes to make this happen. So now John McCain and Senator Kyl, they're so concerned about a 10-point border plan. You know, where's the ideas about immigration? I would be excited to get involved in the debate about immigration reform. What do we need? What are Arizona's concerns? Do we have labor shortages? What are the markets saying? What industries will we need to grow because we need cheap labor? We need to have those discussions. And we need a policy that's consistent with our values as Americans, that values families, values work, values fairness. So I think the president is basically saying, look, it's time for us to have this particular discussion. And given the changes in the ground here in Arizona, you know, Governor Brewer, by signing that law, is finally, you know, I guess Senator McCain's finally getting traction on an issue that he's been there 24 years on, hasn't really been able to make those changes. Where was this 10-point plan on border security, you know, 10 years ago or 2 years ago? It seems to me a career politician like John McCain now is using this issue to get reelected.
We've had both John Doherty and Rodney Glassman on this show, and I've asked them this question. I'll ask you as well. What do you think should happen with the folks who are now in this country who have entered illegally?
I think that we need to provide an avenue for them to legalize their status in some ways. You know, what those actual specifics will be will obviously involve a debate in Congress, but it's about providing, you know, recognizing families, equal rights for workers, and creating a system that we actually allow these folks to come out of the shadows. These folks are contributing to our country. And it's frustrating because it seems like our history is repeating itself. We have a history where immigrants, whether Irish or Chinese or Italian, were actually treated differently because they were different when they came over to try and, you know, contribute to our economy and make this the nation the great nation that it is. And so we need to really look at the problem. How do we start to normalize these folks, especially who've been here for quite a long time, so they can be part of our society and not to live in a status where they can be exploited and taken advantage of?
Should there be some kind of fine that they have to pay?
I think so. I think we're also a nation of laws and fairness, right? So it has to be fair. You don't want folks who came here with undocumented status to jump in front of a line or be able to have, you know, actually get rewarded for breaking those particular laws. But also put it in perspective. We've had a broken immigration system for quite some time that's benefited corporations, that's benefited, you know, different situations where these particular workers were exploited, taken advantage of, and that helped build our economy. So now this is about really us coming full circle and coming to the table. So look, we can have a better system.
And a path to citizenship?
That should be on the table. Path to legalization, path to citizenship. Again, it's going to depend because all these folks are not the same. We have mixed families, some folks who have citizens in their families, legal residents already. Some may have someone who's undocumented. But I think the whole discussion should be on the table. And path to citizenship should be one factor that we should take in consideration, given the particular cases of each particular family.
Let me ask you about illegal immigration, because that's certainly a hot topic here in southern Arizona. What is it that we should do with the folks who have entered this country illegally and are here now?
The folks that are here now, we need to document them first. We need to know who they are, and we need to establish some sort of pathway in which they can obtain permanent residency if they meet all the requirements that we lay out. I am against deporting, rounding up people, and shipping them out of here. The business community in Arizona and in the United States has encouraged and accepted illegal, undocumented immigration for decades. From that point on, we need to establish strong employer sanctions, and they need to be enforced. But the people that are here, who are contributing to the economy, contributing to the community, we can't turn around and deport them. I'm against that.
Is that an amnesty plan, or would there be some kind of fine involved, or how would you go about
definitely.
that?
We're not giving away American citizenship, and we're not giving away the right to stay here. But what we are going to do is say if you meet certain criteria, paying a fine, community service, learning English, contributing to your community, and you're a good citizen, then I believe we should accept the fact that we made the pathway for them to come here. We can't turn around and deport 12 or 14 million people. The damage to the economy of the United States and the damage to the economy of Arizona would be immense. And the cost to doing that, it would be off the charts. Let's get the people who are here documented. Let's make sure they have insurance provided by their employer so they don't show up in the emergency rooms and have that cost shifted to taxpayers.
What should this country be doing?
When the governor signed the new immigration bill here in Arizona, Senator McCain said he supported it, and on the other side of the aisle, on the other side of Congress, Representative Grijalva called for a boycott. Now, I know you issued a statement at that time, but had you been in Congress when that happened, what would you have done?
I would have picked up the phone and spoken with the governor. The reality is both SB 1070 and Congressman Grijalva's boycott are born out of frustration. They're born out of frustration with the fact that John McCain has ignored our immigration issue as far as finding a solution for the past 28 years. Arizonans are frustrated. They're frustrated with our lack of a voice in Washington, D.C., and while the governor can share her frustration, while Congressman Grijalva can share his frustration, for John McCain to be on television and be in interviews complaining about Washington, D.C., he is Washington, D.C., and that's where the change needs to happen.
So picking up the phone with the governor, what would you have said to her?
We need to come up with a solution. We need to be working together. We need to be bringing everyone around the table to come up with federal immigration reform. And the reality is that the campaign that I've put together, which includes the support of immigrant leaders, that includes the support of labor leaders like Dolores Huerta, that includes the support of individuals like Congressman Grijalva, as well as members of the business community, as well as members of the agricultural community, as well as members of the home building community, is the exact kind of table that we're going to need to set in Washington, D.C. in order to bring everyone together and have a champion for federal immigration reform, which is what I plan on being as Arizona's next U.S. Senator.
On the topic of immigration reform, one of the major sticking points still is, what do you do with the people who are now in this country without proper documentation? What do you think should happen with those folks?
We are a nation of laws, and the laws need to be enforced. Individuals that are here and are undocumented need to get to the back of the line. They need to pay any back taxes. Perhaps they need to do other things in order to become legal, but the reality is that we are being insincere. John McCain is being insincere when he thinks that we can arrest our way out of this problem. We need to acknowledge that the economic realities of our country do not match our current immigration policy, and Arizona needs to have a leader in the United States Senate that is willing to work and build a coalition that can come up with federal immigration reform. For 28 years, John McCain has been on every single side of the issue except for getting something done, and that's where the problem lies.
Now, when you say go to the back of the line, do you mean they need to return to their home countries and go to the back of the line, or will they have their status normalized and be allowed to remain in the United States?
The key, Jim, is that we need to have a system in place for individuals that are here illegally and undocumented to go to the back of the line, to pay back taxes, to do whatever Congress decides is going to be necessary in order for them to go through a process. As a legislative aide for Congressman Grijalva, I did casework on individuals, on children that moved here when they were 4 or 5 years old, who attended elementary school in the United States, who attended middle school in the United States, who attended high school in the United States, yet still at the time they graduated from high school, their documentation, their paperwork process, which had started more than a decade earlier, hadn't been completed. There is no one in the state of Arizona that I've spoken to thus far that thinks that 10 years is an appropriate amount of time for someone to have to go through an immigration process. So the entire system needs to be fixed.
And as far as back of the line, do you mean home country back of the line or stay here in the United States?
They need to start a process, and the process needs to be something that works.